Teddy Pendergrass was a soul icon with a voice that melted hearts and a career that inspired millions. But behind the fame and timeless hits was a life filled with untold struggles, shocking twists, and a secret he carried to his grave. What was the terrible truth that haunted him until the end? Stay tuned as we uncover the story behind the legend and reveal the hidden side of Teddy Pendergrass's life that few ever knew. Teddy Pendergrass, born Theodore Darius Pendergrass on the 26th of March, 1950, in Kingstree, South Carolina, came into the world as the only child of Jesse and Ida Geraldine Pendergrass after his mother endured the heartbreak of 6 miscarriages. Teddy's early life was shaped by both love and hardship. His father left the family when Teddy was very young, though his mother promised he would one day meet him. True to her word, they reconnected when Teddy was 11 years old. Tragically, shortly after their reunion, his father was killed in a violent altercation, leaving an indelible mark on young Teddy's life. Growing up in the tough neighborhoods of North Philadelphia, Teddy's path was far from easy. He found solace in his faith, often singing in church and dreaming of becoming a pastor. At just 10 years old, he achieved that dream when he was ordained as a minister. Alongside his spiritual pursuits, he took up the drums and served as a junior deacon, channeling his energies into music and community. Teddy attended Thomas Edison High School for Boys in North Philadelphia, where he joined the Edison Master Singers. However, his passion for music ultimately led him to drop out in the 11th grade to chase his dreams. His first recording, Angel with Muddy Feet, failed to gain traction, but Teddy was undeterred. He continued honing his craft, playing drums for local Philadelphia bands before joining the Cadillacs, a group distinct from the more famous Harlem-based ensemble of the same name. In 1970, Teddy's fortunes shifted when Harold Melvin, founder of the Blue Notes, discovered his talent. Initially brought on as the group's drummer, Teddy's powerful voice could not be contained behind the kit. During a performance, his impromptu singing caught Melvin's attention, and he was soon promoted to lead vocalist. With Teddy at the helm, the Blue Notes transformed their fortunes, signing with Philadelphia International Records in 1971. This partnership with legendary producers Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff marked the beginning of an extraordinary chapter in Teddy's life, setting him on the path to becoming one of soul music's most iconic voices. In 1972, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes made their debut with the poignant ballad I Miss You, a song originally intended for the Dells. With Kenny Gamble recognizing a vocal similarity between young Teddy Pendergrass and the Dells' lead singer Marvin Jr., the decision was made to craft the song around Teddy's raw talent. At just 21 years old, Pendergrass infused the track with his signature raspy baritone, which would soon become his calling card. Backed by Lloyd Park's falsetto harmonies and Harold Melvin's spoken-word interlude, Pendergrass delivered an emotive performance, complete with feigned tears, that elevated the song to a theatrical masterpiece. The result was a major rhythm and blues hit that firmly established the Blue Notes as a group to watch. Their success reached new heights with the follow-up single, If You Don't Know Me By Now. Originally intended for Patti LaBelle and her group LaBelle, scheduling conflicts meant the song landed in the hands of the Blue Notes, where Pendergrass's voice brought it to life. The track broke into the mainstream, climbing into the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100 and securing the #1 spot on the Soul Singles chart. This collaboration also sparked a lifelong friendship between Pendergrass and Patti LaBelle, further intertwining their legacies in the world of soul music. The group's ascent continued with hits like The Love I Lost, a precursor to the burgeoning disco movement, the tender ballad Hope That We Can Be Together Soon, and socially charged anthems like Wake Up Everybody and Bad Luck. Another standout was their original recording of Don't Leave Me This Way, which later became a disco phenomenon through Thelma Houston's 1976 rendition. However, behind the music, tensions were brewing. By 1975, Pendergrass and Harold Melvin were locked in disputes over finances and control. Despite being the vocal centerpiece of the group's success, Pendergrass found himself overshadowed by Melvin, who maintained control over the group's earnings. Fans often mistook Pendergrass for Melvin, leading to Teddy's proposal to rename the group Teddy Pendergrass and the Blue Notes, a suggestion that further strained their relationship. Ultimately, Pendergrass left the group in 1975, embarking on a solo career that would define his legacy. Without Pendergrass, the Blue Notes struggled to find their footing. Although they continued to perform and record, they never regained the prominence they enjoyed during Teddy's tenure. The group eventually faded into relative obscurity after leaving Philadelphia International Records. though a version of Harold Melvin's Blue Notes persisted on the old-school circuit, keeping their music alive long after Melvin's passing in 1997. By 2014, the group's legacy endured as they continued to perform under the iconic name. Teddy Pendergrass burst onto the scene in 1977 with his self-titled debut album, an electrifying statement that announced the arrival of a soul powerhouse. The album, driven by the irresistible disco groove of I Don't Love You Anymore, quickly achieved platinum status, while The Whole Town's Laughing at Me cemented his place on the R&B charts. Even deeper cuts like You Can't Hide From Yourself, The More I Get, The More I Want, and the heartfelt ballad, And If I Had, turned listeners into believers, showcasing his commanding voice and emotional depth. A year later, Pendergrass raised the stakes with Life is a Song Worth Singing, an album that elevated his star to new heights. Its sultry standout, Close the Door, a million-selling R&B chart topper, established him as the ultimate male sex symbol in soul music. The album also delivered the electrifying disco anthem, Get Up, Get Down, Get Funky, Get Loose, the tender It Don't Hurt Now, and the affirming groove of When Somebody Loves You Back. Double platinum and undeniable, the record left an indelible mark. By 1979, Pendergrass was a force of nature. His album Teddy dominated the Billboard R&B chart for 8 weeks and was hailed as the second biggest R&B album of the year. Hits like the sensual Turn Off the Lights, the inviting Come Go With Me, and the high-energy Do Me further showcased his versatility. That same year, he captured the magic of his live performances with Live Coast to Coast, solidifying his reputation as a must-see performer. Riding this wave of success, Pendergrass took a more intimate turn with his 1980 release, TP. This album featured the smoldering classic, Love TKO, a soulful duet with Stephanie Mills on Feel the Fire, and the tender Ashford and Simpson gem, Is It Still Good to You? With 5 consecutive platinum albums between 1977 and 1981, Pendergrass shattered records and redefined R&B success. By late 1978, his star power was undeniable. Crowds packed his concerts, many drawn by his raw charisma and magnetic appeal to women of all backgrounds. Recognizing this unique phenomenon, his manager, Shep Gordon, famous for his bold promotional strategies, introduced the concept of women-only concerts. These groundbreaking shows, designed exclusively for female audiences, became an iconic part of Pendergrass's legacy and set a trend that lives on today. With his towering popularity, the press likened him to the Black Elvis, a nod to his crossover success and the grandeur of his lifestyle, including a mansion outside Philadelphia reminiscent of Elvis's Graceland. However, Pendergrass's journey was not without its shadows. In April 1977, tragedy struck when his manager and girlfriend, Tasmaya Taslang, was shot and killed on the doorstep of her home. The murder remains unsolved, with whispers of involvement by Philadelphia's Black Mafia, who reportedly resented Lang's influence over Pendergrass's burgeoning career. Lang's death cast a pall over Pendergrass's meteoric rise, a haunting reminder of the dangers that sometimes accompany success. By 1982, Teddy Pendergrass stood unrivaled as the leading R&B male artist of his era. His influence extended beyond music, shaping the Quiet Storm format and inspiring contemporaries like the Isley Brothers, who released Don't Say Goodnight, It's Time for Love, as a response to his intimate anthem, Turn Off the Lights. Pendergrass's artistry, combined with his indomitable presence, left an enduring legacy that continues to resonate in the world of soul music. Teddy Pendergrass was a living embodiment of sensuality, a man whose presence in music could ignite desire in an instant. As his manager, Shep Gordon, bluntly put it in the documentary Teddy Pendergrass, "If you don't know me, with Teddy, we realized it was all about sex." There was no need for extensive focus groups or market analysis. Pendergrass exuded passion effortlessly. His music pulsed with a smooth, seductive soul rhythm, anchored by his husky baritone, which seemed designed to make hearts race and temperatures rise. Olivia Lichtenstein, the film's director, encapsulated his allure with a single anecdote. "One guy told me Teddy Pendergrass was an early form of Viagra." But what truly set Pendergrass apart was his ability to make men root for him just as much as women adored him. His music didn't merely seduce, it created connections, making women desire their partners more and making men grateful for the spark Pendergrass ignited. On stage, Pendergrass was magnetic, tall, strikingly handsome, and always impeccably dressed. When not deliberately underdressed, was often seen performing in a white vest drenched with sweat, a visual metaphor for his heated performances. Imagine Barry White's velvety appeal housed in Idris Elba's chiseled physique, and you have a sense of Pendergrass's allure. Women found him utterly irresistible, and he, by all accounts, was more than willing to indulge their affections. His concerts became arenas of unbridled adoration. Women screamed, threw underwear onto the stage, and in some cases devised elaborate schemes just to get close to him. Some even dressed as hotel staff to sneak into his room, determined to turn fantasy into reality. Pendergrass, ever the consummate showman, leaned into this adulation, becoming the godfather of sex in the world of soul music. Yet beneath the steamy image and palpable charisma was an artist who understood the power of intimacy, not just physical, but emotional. Teddy Pendergrass was living a dream so grand it bordered on myth. Known as the Black Elvis, he had ascended to heights few in the world of soul music could rival. With 4 consecutive platinum albums, he was a king of R&B, his seductive baritone captivating millions. Success had afforded him a life of opulence, a sprawling Graceland-style mansion, a fleet of luxury cars, stables filled with horses, and even a denim label bearing his name. Pendergrass was at the pinnacle of fame, a man seemingly untouchable, with the world at his feet. But fate, as it often does with those who seem larger than life, had other plans. On the night of the 18th of March, 1982, Pendergrass was driving his gleaming green Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit through the winding roads of Philadelphia's East Falls neighborhood. The car, a symbol of his immense success, was brand new, a Rolls befitting a soul music god. Sitting beside him was Tenica Watson, a transgender nightclub performer he'd known casually for years. What began as a quiet drive home turned into a tragedy that would change his life forever. As they traveled along Lincoln Drive, the car veered uncontrollably. It struck a guardrail, swerved into oncoming traffic, and slammed into 2 trees with devastating force. The crash was catastrophic. The impact crushed the car's front, jamming the doors shut and trapping its occupants inside. For nearly an hour, Pendergrass and Watson were prisoners of the wreckage. While Watson escaped with minor injuries, Pendergrass was not as fortunate. His neck had been broken, his spinal cord irreparably damaged. At just 31 years old, the man who had danced across stages and commanded audiences with his every move would never walk again. The aftermath of the accident was shrouded in whispers and speculation. Pendergrass's driver's license had already been revoked for unpaid parking tickets, and just a week earlier, he'd crashed a Maserati. Rumors of alcohol playing a role in the Rolls-Royce crash were quickly dismissed by police. Watson, who emerged from the ordeal shaken but physically unscathed, suggested that the car's brakes might have failed, hinting at possible tampering. The truth, however, remained elusive. What was certain was that Pendergrass's life had been irrevocably altered in a matter of seconds. The accident stripped Pendergrass of his mobility, but not his spirit. He faced his new reality with a resolve that mirrored the power of his voice. But the tragedy cast a long shadow over the life of a man who had once seemed invincible, leaving a haunting reminder of how quickly even the brightest stars can be dimmed. It's hard to imagine the sheer weight of what Pendergrass endured, the sudden halt of a meteoric rise, the loss of a body that had been as much a part of his performance as his voice, and the cruel irony of a life so full of motion confined to stillness. Teddy Pendergrass's story didn't end with the crash that changed his life. It merely entered a new, profoundly human chapter, marked by resilience, reinvention, and an unshakable connection to his fans. As he recovered from his devastating spinal cord injury, thousands of letters poured in from admirers around the world, their words offering hope and love during his darkest hours. In August 1982, Philadelphia International released This Is For You, an album pieced together from tracks Pendergrass had recorded before the accident. It failed to make an impact, as did 1983's Heaven Only Knows, which marked the end of his contract with the label that had once been his creative home. When Pendergrass finally felt ready to return to the studio, the path forward was fraught with challenges. Eventually, Pendergrass found a new partner in Asylum Records. Bolstered by physical therapy and a determination to reclaim his voice, he released The Language of Love in 1984. Among its tracks was Hold Me, a tender duet with a young Whitney Houston, then an unknown talent on the brink of superstardom. Pendergrass's most triumphant moment, however, came not in the studio, but on the stage. On the 13th of July, 1985, he made an emotional return to live performance at the historic Live Aid concert in Philadelphia, performing in front of over 100,000 people and a global television audience of 1.5 billion. He delivered a soul-stirring rendition of Diana Ross's "Reach Out and Touch Somebody's Hand." With tears in his eyes, he thanked the audience for their unwavering support, a powerful testament to the bond between artist and fans. It was a defining moment of grace and strength, reclaiming the stage as a space where his spirit could soar. Even if his body no longer moved freely, Pendergrass continued to record and evolve through the 1990s. One of his last major hits, the New Jack Swing anthem "Believe in Love," arrived in 1994, demonstrating his ability to adapt to the changing sound of R&B. Beyond music, he embraced new artistic ventures, starring alongside Stephanie Mills in a touring production of the gospel musical "Your Arms Are Too Short to Box" with God in 1996. His story came full circle in 1998 with the release of his autobiography, Truly Blessed, a candid reflection on his journey through fame, tragedy, and redemption. Teddy Pendergrass's final chapter was one of quiet courage, a man who had already faced and overcome so much, bracing himself for one last battle. On the 5th of June, 2009, he underwent surgery for colon cancer procedure that, despite its gravity, was deemed a success. He returned home to recover, his indomitable spirit still intact, ready to fight his way back as he had so many times before. But fate would not grant him the reprieve he deserved. Just weeks after his surgery, Pendergrass was rushed back to the hospital with breathing problems. The complications lingered, and for 7 months, he fought valiantly against a body that was slowly failing him. On the 13th of January, 2010, the battle came to an end. Surrounded by love, with his wife Joan at his side, Teddy Pendergrass passed away at Bryn Mawr Hospital in Pennsylvania. He was just 59 years old. The man who had given the world so much his voice, his vulnerability, his passion was laid to rest at West Laurel Hill Cemetery in Bayless-Sinwood, Pennsylvania. His legacy, however, refused to be buried. In life, Pendergrass had faced the kind of trials that might have silenced a lesser soul. In death, he remains a beacon of resilience, his music and spirit continuing to inspire those who hear his story.